What is going on, everyone? Phil here for KO Gaming, and welcome to my review of Inside, the latest game from Playdead Studios, who also made the 2010 sleeper hit Limbo, and in many ways, Inside is a spiritual successor to that game. Now, Limbo was a very big success. It was actually one of the first indie-style games that I had ever played on YouTube, and its unique visual style, its very interesting and unique puzzle elements, the whole kind of the world is against you kind of vibe, the dark, ominous overtones. A lot of things came together to make Limbo a unique and entertaining experience that still to this day has resonance in my mind, and I remember certain things from the game that were awesome when I encountered them for the first time. Inside basically takes that formula to the next level. Instead of having that kind of visual style of shadow, here they actually put in some color. It looks a little bit more realistic, but in a lot of ways, Inside is a very similar game. You play the role of a boy who's basically just out to survive. Everything is after him, whether it's humans, whether it's all kinds of contraptions, whether it's all kinds of ominous machines and monsters. It seems like everything wants this boy dead, and it's your job to go from point A to point B, running, jumping, pulling, and pushing in order to use platforming elements to solve puzzles and survive. Much like Limbo, you are a silent protagonist, so you really don't ever understand fully what's going on in the world around you. It seems like it's some kind of a dystopian future, where the elements are running rampant, where it looks like there's some kind of weird worms that have taken over livestock. Humans have become these mindless drones and slaves that can actually be mind-controlled for puzzle-solving purposes. It really is a bizarre game and a really weird mystery-like atmosphere in a lot of ways. Again, similar to Limbo, where it had similar elements that were never really fully explained. The control scheme is incredibly simple. You can run back and forth, and you can climb ladders and descend ledges. You have a jump button that allows you to jump up and grab ledges, and you have a push or pull button which allows you to latch onto certain things, such as boxes, which you can push and pull for elevation, or doors, which you can open, and that's it. However, the game finds a way to use this incredibly simplified control scheme to create a wide variety of puzzles and challenges for this boy to survive on his path through the game. And I'll be honest here, in this entire game, I don't think I ever came across two puzzles that felt like they were the same. If anything, Playdead did an absolutely outstanding job of putting variety into the game to the point where it seems like every single challenge is something new and fresh and different. Now, there are some similarities to other puzzle games in the past. For example, there's one part that almost seems like an homage to Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, where you're mind-controlling certain slaves and walking them around different levels in order to finally get to an end goal and open a door, a la saving the slaves from Oddworld. So there are going to be some lines that can be drawn and comparisons that can be made to other existing puzzle games. But for the most part, I never felt like two puzzles were the same kind of a deal, or that there was any kind of boring repetition, which is a hurdle to overcome in this style of a puzzle platformer, and a hurdle that a lot of other games don't do well with. So I do have to compliment that Inside in that regard. It never really got stale or boring. In addition, despite the game being overly simple, there is some big variety in the things that you'll be doing. Even though you will be just running, jumping, pushing, and pulling, there are some other segments that are pretty unique, such as being able to swim underwater, being in a submarine for a certain amount of time, which you can then charge up and dash against walls to break through holes. There's also entire segments where you're mind-controlling these slave-like people and using them to solve puzzles, amongst a few other things which I won't spoil. So the game does actually have some variety to it. It's not just you running through the entirety of the game, so in that regard, it does actually feel like a natural evolution from 2010's Limbo. Now, in addition from just going from point A to point B and plain surviving, there are some optional things to do in Inside as well. There are 13 hidden items throughout the course of the game that most of which, I'm going to be very honest with you here, are incredibly cryptic and difficult to find. There's, in most cases, almost no indication that these things exist or that you can actually go to the areas of the game where they can be found. Just to give you some perspective here, I only really was challenged by one puzzle throughout the entirety of Inside. It was a puzzle that had this element of water and air and raising and lowering the level to get through a room. It took me about 5 to 10 minutes to solve this puzzle. Pretty much every other puzzle in Inside, I was able to coast through within a couple minutes and a few tries. But I only found one of these hidden items in the entirety of the game because I didn't even know they existed. That's how cryptic they are to find. And boy, let me tell you, after I finished my playthrough of the game, I actually went and looked up where they all were, and some of them were just like, I don't know how you would ever find them without just actually looking up a list, because some of them are just really well hidden. So you can collect these 13 optional items, and if you do that, the game will lead you down a path to a secret ending. So there is some replayability, and you do actually get trophies and achievements when you find these secret items, so even if you've beaten the game once, you may want to run through it a few extra times for completionist's sake. So overall, Inside lasts a little bit over 3 hours, which is pretty much on par with the length of 2010's Limbo, and let me tell you, it passes by in a heartbeat. As you're playing this game, since you're always constantly coming up against a new puzzle or a different kind of challenge, it really moves quickly, and the next thing you know, the game is over. So that actually speaks true to the fact that the game is so much fun while you're playing it this first run through that it occupies you and it just feels like time is flying by. I also have to point out, the ending of this game is a mind fuck. And I'm not going to spoil it in this review for the very sake that if you're going to play this game for yourself, do not watch the ending of someone else's playthrough. It's one of the most unique and weird things that I've ever seen in a video game, and I was literally saying, what is going on at the end of this game for about 20 minutes during this final segment. If you want, you can check out the description of this video, and you can watch my playthrough of the game and see it for yourself. If you're not planning on playing it, I strongly recommend, for your own sake, if you want to see one of the biggest what the fuck moments in gaming ever, check it out for yourself. It's pretty damned wild, and it's gonna stick in my head for quite a long time. So I just said a hell of a lot of positive stuff about Inside, and I'm fully aware that the mainstream gaming media are fully kissing this game's butt, some going as far to giving it pure 10 out of 10, saying it's one of the best puzzle platformers in history, and I can kind of agree when it comes to the gameplay, but I have to be a fair critic, and the bottom line is that I feel there are some things with Inside that come up pretty short that I want to call out in this review. First of all, the game is only 3 hours long, and the only replayability in it is to go back and find these insanely cryptic hidden items, which lead to a semi-secret ending. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but the bottom line is this game, Inside, costs $20 in the United States. So it's up to you to subjectively judge whether or not you feel that a game you're only going to be playing for a little bit over 3 hours is going to be worth $20 of your money. It was a very similar situation with Limbo back in 2010, where it was a very unique game, but it just ended so quickly with almost no replayability that you were kind of like, oh man, I wish that there was more. In addition, my second and probably the biggest criticism of the game is that the plot is never actually explained. During the course of Inside, you're going to see some of the craziest shit you've ever seen. Why is everyone out to kill this boy? What is up with all the livestock that are infected with these weird, kind of leeches or whatever they are? Why are these humans being mind controlled, and how did this happen? What is this post-apocalyptic world? I mean, there's so many... What is that crazy monster in the water that keeps trying to kill you? There's so many burning questions in the game that really should be answered if you bought it. And the bottom line is, even if you get the secret ending, nothing is ever explained. There's no hidden documents, there's nothing to read, there's no spoken dialogue whatsoever in Inside, and by the time you finish the game, you're kind of like, well, that was a fun 3-hour ride, but what the fuck did I just play? Because they didn't explain anything. And I'm going to be honest here. I've been highly critical of indie games that don't explain their stories or don't have a coherent story. The bottom line is, we've seen in the past couple of years that indie games can have fun and coherent stories. Just take a look at games like Undertale, one of the most recent and most successful indie games that has a crazy good story, much better than stories from most AAA mainstream games. So there's absolutely no excuse, and I hate to say it, but it was Limbo back in 2010, and to some extent, it was actually Journey back in 2012. Two indie games that had great visuals, unique gameplay, but the stories weren't coherent, and they never were fully explained in these games. And everyone just said, well, they're so artsy, and they're so unique and different, we're just gonna forgive all of that and say, well, they're still amazing games, Game of the Year contenders. And I said, absolutely not. In order to have a successful game, gameplay is certainly part of it, but in this day and age, if you want to have a memorable game, you have to have a coherent story. Unfortunately, Inside has a lot of disjointed story elements that could be tied together into an interesting story, but Playdead doesn't make any effort to actually do that, instead leaving that responsibility on you, the gamer, to try to make up your own story for yourself. And I'm sorry, this is a very subjective thing, but I call bullshit. When I buy a game, the responsibility shouldn't be put on me to figure out what the story was of the game. The game designer should have bothered with it, whether it was you find a few documents during the game and you read them and they explain what's going on, or there is maybe a cutscene or two of spoken dialogue. There's no excuse why this game couldn't have put a tiny bit more effort in to explain. And the bottom line is it would have felt like a much more complete, interesting, and fun experience if they had put that extra effort in. So for me, the fact that the game is so short, outside of the secret items, there really is no replayability, and there is no actual attempt to explain a coherent story in the game, those are my major negatives when it comes to Inside. So if you can get over those two startlingly big negatives about the game, you're probably going to love Inside. And the bottom line is, even though I am calling them out on these, I did overall very much enjoy my experience playing this game. And it being that it is a unique game that the entire way through you never feel like it's being repetitive or boring, and everything is unique and creative, and there are these mystery elements to the plot, and you're actually craving more by the time the game ends, those are all overwhelming positives for me. So, weighing and balancing the good and the bad, I'm going to give Inside a rating of 8.5 out of 10. It's certainly not the perfect puzzle platformer like all these mainstream reviewers are praising and kissing its butt for, but at the same time it is something refreshing and different that should be praised for what it is, and if you absolutely like this kind of game, you definitely should check out Inside, if not only for the unique puzzle elements, but for the fact that it's probably going to be one of those games that people will be talking about for quite some time. So, 8.5 out of 10, a great game. I recommend it, even though it does have some shortcomings. I hope Playdead learns from this outing that we want story elements that are explained, and hopefully we can get something better in their next outing. Oh yeah, one final addendum before I wrap this up. The secret ending of the game is not really at all. All it does is end the game prematurely with an element that is something you would not understand unless you beat the game the normal way the first time. It doesn't explain anything. So if you think it's worth your time to try to just single-handedly find these 13 cryptic items, I would probably second guess myself and say just look up a fact to get it done and get the achievements or trophies. It ain't worth your time, and again, kind of a disappointment when I really wanted more story elaboration. Thanks for watching my review, everyone, and if you enjoyed it, please spread the word to your friends and let them know about KO Gaming. In addition, please check the video description for a link to my raw playthrough of Inside over on my streaming and gameplay channel DSP Gaming, as well as a link to my Amazon Associates account and my Patreon at patreon.com/DarksidePhil. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time for another awesome game review. Peace out!